Hello, everybody. Round six of the Tata Steel chess tournament. We're gonna start out with the game from GM Richard Rapport versus GM Wei Yi. Uh, I can't stay away from Richard's games because the guy is uncompromising in his style. I just made a video about believing in your opponent's moves. Basically, don't trust your opponent. Believe in yourself. And trusting your opponent will lead to chronic passivity. You know, and right or wrong, you know, Richard Report, he plays the same style. It's like he won't let anything change him. So I respect that about him. This was an exciting game. Let's go. So e4, e5, everything is looking respectable and normal. Knight f3, Wei Yi plays the Petroff. Knight f6, and knight takes e5, d6. Now, personally, I like playing knight f3 against the Petrov, back here, which is normal here, and I like this line that Nimzovich used to play. This was popular a few years ago. It's some one game to look up in this line. This Karyakin versus Kramnik is a good game a few years ago. That was played. That's the line I like. Poor played knight c4, which is definitely playable. There's nothing wrong with it. As usual, striving for those original positions. Even here, he can play knight c3. Queen e2. Okay, obviously he's not going to win the knight here. Queen e7, but now he's gotten off the beaten track, and this is what he wants. Instead of going into theory with this kid, he decides to take it, into just a skill thing. Your best against my best. Out of the books now. Knight e3, and of course, looking at this square. And black can play c6, which would slightly weaken this pawn, or he could develop a piece which handles the threat of knight d5 also. And I like that move. Knight c3, and there's a similar idea analogous to what I was saying. Knight takes c3, and white can open lines here. Where Yi just goes back, knight f6, g3, because with the queen on e2, I mean, white doesn't need to waste any more time moving the queen in order to get this bishop out. So you see g3. There's a similar idea with this queen e2 that you see in a line of Chigorin's defense in the French defense variation. Just real quick. I do this a lot, go on these little tangents, but I'll make this real fast. So for instance, e4, e6, queen e2, which is Chigorin's variation. The quick and obvious idea is so that black cannot really play e takes d5 and e takes d5. In other words, I have to capture with the queen, etc. But notice how white's queen ends up on e2. So what you see many times is, for instance, here you'll see the bishop end up on g2 as a result of this early placement of this queen here. So you have a similar idea. Okay, so queen e7 was played. Knight e3, bishop e6, knight c3, knight f6, g3, and the bishop is going to this nice diagonal here. Notice this pawn is unprotected. Knight c6, and now white has to be on lookout for this move right here, d4, which is annoying. Can't play d4, bishop g2, queen d7, and he's doing two things. He's preparing to play bishop e7, and also he's lining up for the old traditional kingside attack, Bobby Fischer style, against the Fianchetto's bishop. Play bishop h3, h4, h5, or h5, h4 in this case, and sack mate. b4, a quite disruptive move. Again, remember I told you this pawn is unprotected. The idea is real primitive and simple. Is to simply distract this guy. Not only opening up the B file, but with an attack here. He sees that black is going to castle queenside, so he's getting a jump start on the queenside attack. The only thing that is so for instance, knight takes b4. Not necessarily bishop takes b7 right away, which is possible and met by rook b8, and simply bishop g2, but more of a move like rook b1, just putting pressure on the queen side. Okay, queen d7 was played and b4. Now, as I've said in other videos, when you have to always be careful when initiating the flank attack, because one of the ways to meet a flank attack, or the main way, is to strike back in the center. So if the center is not fully stabilized, you have to be careful because you might get hit in the mouth. So here, Rapport makes this move b4, anticipating the queenside castling, and we can see that white is ready to castle kingside. So you'll have this this fight on the opposite wings, and when you're castled on opposite wings, many times whoever gets their attack in first is gonna be better and have the victory. So we see this jump start by Richard Rapport on the queen side. However, the question is the state of the center. Can black strike in the center, right, in response to this flank attack? And the answer here is yes. Remember, I told you about the weakness of the d4 square, right? This move can be annoying right here, right? White does not have adequate control in the center in order to stop black from really making moves here. Okay, so Wei Yi responds with the classical response. Sure, he can castle, right? But he strikes in the center. I love this move, d5. Notice how he has this little threat. d5, b5. Again, now here's the annoying move. Boom. So now with the move d5, it blunts this bishop right now. Secondly, he comes in the center. Notice how all the play in the center is geared against the flank attack, right? So black is completely equalized. So now knight d4, attacking the queen. Queen d3. See, now he has to make like an awkward looking move. The move is like real awkward and bizarre looking, because if he goes back to d1, he just drops the pawn, right? Just simply knight takes. So he plays queen d3 to maintain the connection here. Again, c5. See, so he maintains the connection here and attacks this, but again, c5. Notice the play in the center in response to the flank attack. Real simple. Like, remember those principles. Don't remember moves. Remember the principles. So c5. And of course, he doesn't want to take. Same threat. And again, black is equalized thoroughly. So castles, and he castles queenside. Now, what I like about the black position is his position in the center, and also the fact that it's going to be hard for white, even though white has a head start on this queenside attack, it's going to be hard for him to open up the white king side, because once these pawns, lined up, then a6 is going to be met by b6, and when these pawns are together, b6 is going to be met by a6 and locking up the position. So it's going to be hard. So he has a head start on the queen side, but how are you going to get open? Then this dominance in the center by black makes it difficult as far as transferring pieces over there to the queen side. So interesting game. Rook e1 by Rapport. h5. So he gets started on the attack. Now the same rules apply to black here. Who's attacking on the flank. Can white make some kind of counter strike in the center? That's the question. So it doesn't seem like white has any meaningful strike in the center to offset. So it seems like Wei Yi's um, play on H5 is more correct than B4 was earlier and B5 was earlier by report. Another move here instead of H5, more like Knight F5. This was an interesting move that I was looking at. Getting this threat of D4 is renewed here. So therefore, all of this stuff is kind of forced. So for instance, knight C takes D5, knight takes E3, knight takes E3, and queen takes D3, C takes D3, rook takes D3. There's mass exchange of pieces, and I think White's position looks a little suspect as far as his just his pawns. I think White is black has a nice pawn structure. Symmetrical 3 pawns on the king side. It's 3 pawns intact on the king side. Bishop here, as does White, but White has a little bit more weakness, as we can see, especially with the D pawn. So that was a consideration also. However, Wei Yi wants to administer a beatdown in the position, and he's not playing for any endgame. He's trying to deliver the beatdown in the middle game. So H5 is played, and this move that Rapport plays, I don't like it. I did not like H4 too much. It's I mean, he needs to go for his attack on the queen side. I think this move kind of plays into black's hands, because and it's a fine line, because sometimes you want to sometimes you want to slow down your opponent's attack and then continue with your own, and that's what he's obviously trying to do here. But H5 just seems like it weakens the white king side pawn structure a little too much. So I prefer more development. What's going on with this guy? This bishop on C1. He can't get out. He's blocked. It's like, put him somewhere, man. Maybe like bishop B2 or something. You know, like, do something. Connect these rooks. Like, this doesn't look right. See, I would be addressing that before a move like H4. Even A4. Like, get on with the queen side attack. Try something. Even though, like I said, it's hard to break through because he could lock it up. That's why I like this move. At least develop. Don't get caught with pieces undeveloped, man. If you're gonna lose the game, lose fighting. Don't lose the pieces just sitting on the in the back rank. So H4 is played, and again, G5 is a move that's just being screaming to be played, and that's what Wei Yi's plays. Again, he had the same idea that I mentioned earlier with Knight F5. That move is always on the table here. But again, his mentality is that he wants to win the game by knockout. So he played G5, although Knight F5 might be objectively better. So he plays G5, and the game gets really sharp at this point. And he basically giving up a pawn with tempo against the knight. And this part is hard to judge because it looks like he's just losing material here as far as giving up this pawn, but the position is so sharp. Rapport played B6 here, which is interesting to me because after A6 the position gets locked up, and then he plays H takes G5. So maybe, like, I don't know. He might have had this idea of sacrificing his bishop here So he wanted to fix the pawn there because he knows that a6 is coming. But that is a very committal move right there. So instead of b6, if h takes g5 right away, then we have a position that's analogous to what has actually happened in the game. And this position is very interesting. So instead of going into a variation that's similar to what happened in the game, let's just look at the game. So b6, a6. Now Rapport play h takes g5, knight g4 by Wei. Of course, his intention is to continue to open this H file. And notice the attack from all of these pieces on d5. So knight c takes d5 is played. And again, notice this bishop's not developed. Bishop g7 can be played, but he goes on with the attack h4. Now just note that both players are making inaccuracies in this position. The position seems to me that's like not familiar, that neither player is really that familiar with the position. So they're going back and forth, like they're making slight errors here and there. And it's going to be like whoever makes basically the last error, you know, that's how the game's going to be decided. I made a video before this one about not believing your opponent's moves, not trusting the opponent's moves. And because it leads to, the main reason is because it leads to passive play. And in this game, you see both players kind of like not trusting each other's moves. Like Wei Yi is trying to attack, and some people might, with the white piece might be like, wow, black has a crushing attack. In other words, but the way Richard Rapport is playing is like, I have the crushing attack. So it's like both players, they trust themselves. In other words, neither player is playing passively. Like they're just going for it. And you can see that psychologically these players are in good shape because you don't see like one player just getting steamrolled. Wei Yi is not steamrolling Rapport, and Rapport is not steamrolling. It's like these players are going back and forth. They're making mistakes, but it's like let the best man win. Now here, Rapport, he plays a lot of natural. His moves look great, and I feel sorry for him because he lost the I'm trying to think. I think the game against Wesley So when he had the black pieces. He was so close to a win, and it's like his enterprising play has not been rewarded. It's just he gets the bad result at the end. And here, he played knight c7, which it's a natural looking move. He keeps control over this d5 square. He unleashes the power of this bishop on his diagonal, and you have this idea of knight takes a6, followed by queen takes a6 check, and then you would think there got to be a mate right around the corner, right? And then this guy, Wei Yi, I'm talking about, he finds this move h3, right? Just incredible, this incredible tactical vision. And now, I'm sure Rapport seen this. He plays bishop takes b7 check, king takes b7. This is nasty. Queen takes a6. So you look at this position, it's like black has to be lost here. This is what I'm talking about, not believing your opponent. If Wei Yi believed his opponent, he might have resigned here. Look, this looks crazy. After queen c6, after king c6, it looks like that pawn is going to promote. If Rapport could get that rook to the b file, it is a wrap, right? That is, listen, man, Wei Yi, to be a young kid, man, playing like this, he has some guts, man. This kid, look at this game. Look at the king. And that's why I said the mental aspect in chess is very important. It's psychology. Because if you have a mentality like where you kind of weak and like your opponent can, because if you look at this position, like say if you were at the tournament and you just walked by and looked at the board, you'd be like, man, black is lost, right? Now, if you were sitting at the board and looking at the position and you're like, man, I'm lost, then you're gonna play bad moves. But Wei Yi kept playing the best moves. King C6, right? Look at that, King C6. Now what? Now he's telling the report. Now what? What you gonna do? What you gonna do? So he decides to play knight takes G4. Right, there's some nasty stuff in this position. Um, let's make like a no move. Let's play like A3 or something. Cause black has threats too. A no move is like a move that just doesn't mean nothing. So A3, just because I want to show you what black is threatening here. With this pawn here, and look in these beautiful knights, right? White's castle is not all safe and sound, right? So say if black had the opportunity to move, black is mating here. 4, look at it. Knight F3 check. And hope you can see if King H1, that's mate. And if King F1, Knight G H2, King E2, and then a nasty queen sacrifice. Ow! See, to make you retire right there. That's like whoa. You know, that's whoo. So this is what Rapport is dealing with, right? In other words, Wei has his guns and Rapport has his guns, and he's saying like, listen, man, you give me a move, you make a mistake, I'm knock you out the box. You see? So the play is very sharp and double edged. So let's go back to the game. Now, in order to deal with this threat right here, Rook F1 could have been played here, and that basically stops the combination because the F2 square is taken care of. Rapport played knight takes G4, right? And the problem with this move, and this move is a mistake, by the way. This is probably the losing a losing move, right? Bishop, he makes a mistake because he brings another piece, another very important piece right next to the king here. And notice too, Richard Rapport has no protection around the king. And Black's king is drafty too, but at least the knight and queen and rook are kind of like near the vicinity a little bit. Right? But both kings are drafty. So look what happens. Bishop takes G4 and B7. So B7, this looks really dangerous. The problem is here, and I don't know if Wei Yi saw this. The problem is White does not have enough pieces around to finish off the attack. So after B7 check, King takes C7. Now what? He really can't queen right now. So that's a major issue, is that White just does not have enough pieces to finish off the attack here. And it reminds me of an old saying by Frank Marshall, who's the founder of the Marshall Chess Club in New York City. A saying that's attributed to him is, he said, when you're attacking, he said, make sure that basically that, I'm messing it up now, that they attack in such a way that when the fire is out, it ain't out. And meaning that you can keep your attack going and going, even though the opponent might trade off some pieces or or do what, defensive measures to try to stop your attack, play in a way that when they think the fire is out, it ain't out. Now here is a problem because Rapport doesn't have enough pieces. He just has the queen basically. So queen a5 check, king b8, queen a8 check. So Rapport is going for, the perpetual. King c7. Because the problem is if again, if Rapport lets up, then you have to deal with these type of moves. H2 check, and then the bishop comes on this beautiful diagonal. That's one of the problems with Rapport trading off that knight, because he just brought a powerful piece, you know, around these weak and light squares. So strategically, that was, bad. Queen a5, and then finally, Wei Yi. Maybe he probably seen it, but he wanted to be sure and was double checking. That's why he was repeating. Plays the move King d6, and he could have been doing it to double check, or he could have been just sticking it to Rapport. Because sometimes guys will do that. They stick it to you like that, make you think you're gonna get that draw, and then you know let you know that you lost. Queen b6 and King d5. Again, there's no time. There's no time to push this, right? You would love to make the queen, but then you get mated, right? H2. Of course, if King f1, Bishop f3 check, right? So King g2, same thing. Check. King f1, Queen, upset. So you can see the big strategic error again in allowing this bishop to come here after trading off knight g4 because the light squares are suspect. So this is why Richard cannot queen here. He wants to. So he plays rook e3. What is he trying to do? Protect the square. But there's really nothing that can be done. So h2, check h1. And by him bringing this rook up here, he can stop this. So Wei Yi gets on, and of course he wants the queen. So Wei Yi plays the move Queen c6. And the idea is basically just to move the king somewhere out the way. He also could have played this move rook d8, rook e8, with the idea of removing the defender of the f3 square. But Queen c6 is good enough. Rook b1 was played. Queen takes b6. Again, not the strongest, but it gets the job done. Queen takes b6. Rook takes b6. Bishop d6. Notice how the back rank gets defended. Bishop b2. And then just simply rook d8. And again, it has the similar idea of removing the defender from the f3. Okay, so after rook d8, Rapport was forced to give it up. Now, I just want to go back to the critical moment here, if I can remember. All right, so knight c takes d5, h4, h3. I mean, there were a couple of important moments here. Now, instead of this move, bishop takes b7. Again, it's hard to blame Rapport for making this move. Because it looks decisive. This move is possible, just preserving the bishop. h2, king g2. It's not what white is looking for, but it kind of preserves things a little bit. Now here, if knight takes g4, then h takes g2, and knight takes e6. Rook h1, check. King takes g2. Rook takes e1. Knight takes d8. We got a lot of exchanges going on. Everything just magically disappears from the board. Queen c4 looks strong, but I don't think white has enough to win. Instead, I think that it'll probably be a draw, because remember, black has this bishop lurking back here. So even with the extra material, the extra pawns, I don't think white has enough here. But notice even in those variations that white holds on to the important light square bishop. That's a big strategical move right there, and it didn't work out for Rapport. But once he gave up that light square bishop and left the weaknesses around that fianchetto, Wei was able to thoroughly exploit that. So that was an exciting game, especially from a spectator standpoint. I mean, both sides were making errors, and didn't it didn't look like they were that theoretically prepared. It just looks like Rapport took it out of the theory early, and then they just like um, had like a slugfest. And Wei was playing chess on like general principles, and he made errors. Rapport made errors, but for instance, this move h5 was not the best move, but he made it work. He probably should have played knight f5 there and played more solidly, but he went for the jugular. He showed that he wanted to fight. Getting this move is probably a bit over aggressive, but again he showed that he wanted to have a battle. And again, it takes two to tango, so much respect to Richard Rapport too for another exciting game, albeit in a losing effort here. So as usual, please like and subscribe. I'm getting ready to take a little break, and then I'm gonna be back with another video, round 6 between Giri and Nepomniachtchi, which is a good lesson about the weakness of the d5 square in the Sicilian. See you then.